Marcelo from CBS. He ranked the schedules 1 through 16, and looks like he heavily weighted like schedule flow. And I think that's important. That's something people don't talk about. It's not necessarily that you're playing LSU and Alabama. It's that you're playing LSU, Oklahoma, and Alabama 3 straight games.
Yeah.
There's an open date in between. And I mean, if you think about the 2012 Gamecocks, that's what got them. It wasn't that they were not as good as LSU or Florida, who they lost to, is that they played Georgia, LSU, and Florida 3 straight weeks. 2 of those were on the road. They were all top 10 teams that year. So that matters, in my opinion.
Yeah.
At the same time, the Carolina schedule flow, I guess, maybe based on where the open dates are, had Carolina 13th out of 16th as far as his opinion on the schedule strength. Now, are you buying that Carolina's playing one of the more favorable schedules in the league? And I'll give you a compare. Texas was up there in 8th. I'm like, you got 2 Power 4 teams, one on the neutral field, plus 8 SEC games, plus Alabama. Like Alabama and LSU are 2 of the contenders in the league. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think when you look at South Carolina's schedule, I think the beginning of it can be pretty favorable. I mean, I think you're going to be, the Virginia Tech game, I think, can be a little bit scary just because it's first game. Virginia Tech has so much, unknown, I think, and so many new pieces. But, when you look at the schedule, like, you maybe are catching Missouri at a decent time just because they're going to probably, still be figuring out, everything from an offensive standpoint and what they're having to replace there, especially at quarterback with Pribula and Sam Horn, and then I think that's really going to be, Missouri's first test in that, 6 straight home games that they have to start the season. So I think from that instance, you can see maybe pre LSU, it can be a nice start potentially for South Carolina. But the place I look at is when you get into that stretch in October where you have Oklahoma on the 18th, Alabama the 25th, Ole Miss the 21st. I mean, you're throwing LSU before that on the 11th. You got 3 straight games against those teams before you go to Ole Miss on the road, and so that can be a little bit difficult just because that's at Baton Rouge and then gets 2 of the teams that as you see it right now are starting to get some hype for what they could be. Obviously we'll see with both Alabama and Oklahoma what they're going to do there, but I think from a bye week standpoint, it does work out pretty well for South Carolina to have one after the Ole Miss game to go to A&M. But I still that stretch right there in October is really tough, especially having those 3 straight games going into Ole Miss in a place you haven't been since 2020. And no, we don't know. I don't think we know much about Ole Miss right now. They got a lot to replace as well, and really on both sides of the ball from the NFL draft. But that can be tough to have that trio of games right there to go into Oxford.
Yeah, at least you got 2.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say the only redeeming thing there is you get 2 at home, right, Alex?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Because other than that, it's a brutal stretch.
Yeah, I agree, and it's never easy to go to Baton Rouge, and then and then Oklahoma sort of being the sandwich game there. That's scary because if they are fortunate enough to start 5-0, and I don't. Ever since the sky, I never said that. I don't believe that's a given. I think they're potential landmines. If the team goes into the mindset that they're just going to be handed a 5-0 start, they're going to start 3-2. Just to be honest, I look at it and I'm like, well, if they are 5-0, and let's say LSU is really good, because LSU could be 3-2 and in chaos and disgruntled, and unfortunately for them, Brian Kelly's buyout after this year is like $47 million. So I think they're stuck on you. They're stuck with that guy. As likable as he is. I mean, at least Les Miles and Ed Orgeron were like likable people.
Yeah.
I mean, who doesn't love Coach O and the hat?
Somebody posted on Twitter the other day the LSU logo, and I was like, what do you think of when you see this? And the first thing that pops into my head is, the hat. That's Les Miles, first team, and then Coach
eating
O,
grass.
and then after that, players. You got to go really deep into it before I think, oh yeah, Brian Kelly.
I don't even think about Brian Kelly. But
And
he's a good. I respect him. He's a good coach. But
Yeah.
so you don't know. But I'll finish my point here real quick. But if Carolina is 5-0, they're going to give. I mean, based on what happened last year and stuff, that's going to be a titanic game for the program. Yeah. And then you got Oklahoma coming in for a noon kickoff the next week. Don't like it. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to go back to the beginning of the schedule too. Like, kind of like I said, Virginia Tech. There's so much new there in first games. I think you'd like South Carolina's chances, but we've seen kind of how first games could go. But the one that I mentioned Missouri, but Vanderbilt too is one that can be just we've talked about from an offensive standpoint why they can be scary, but really on both sides of the ball they return just about everybody from last year's roster, and obviously Pavia and Stowers get a lot of recognition on offense, but they did pretty well in the transfer portal from the offensive line standpoint. They got their top receiver coming back in Junior Sherrill. Cedric Alexander at running back is pretty good. Then Clark Lee, he's a defensive guy, and I know he's passing off the coordinator stuff overall. But that game could be a little scary just because of Vanderbilt. Obviously you've got the stuff where Diego Pavia is saying that circle the game for South Carolina, but just to go back to kind of the overall thoughts on the schedule, I think you'd like South Carolina's chances, and if you can get to Baton Rouge, as you mentioned, 5-0, South Carolina can do that. It's not going to be easy to do that, but that's going to be a massive game. Kind of back to what was that 2012 year, that Baton Rouge game at South Carolina LSU game. There's a lot on the line in that game too.
Yeah, there is, and that was that wasn't the start of the brutal Cocktober stretch that year. It was game 2, but I was actually at that game. Tough one to lose. Jeremy Hill kind of ran all over them in that one. There were times in that game I thought Carolina was going to win it, though. That Carolina would have moved. They were 3rd in the country in that going into that game. So a tough one there. Yes, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I think one game at a time. I mean, obviously, you mentioned Vanderbilt. I like that that's at home at night at Williams-Brice. I also don't like it at all, especially if Carolina beats Virginia Tech and then Virginia Tech beats Vanderbilt, because Vandy, and the other thing about it is too, Vandy's going to Lane Stadium the previous week at night. Yeah. So if there's a Tiger Stadium in Baton Rouge, Williams-Brice, Lane Stadium in Blacksburg at night stuff. Now, some teams have gone up there and obviously beaten Virginia Tech at night recently. Clemson comes to mind last year, but it's still night games there are a little different than day games at Lane Stadium. And so they're going to be battle tested. So it's just got some makings of a game that, and then you throw in the streak against, Pavia probably made those comments because they're probably sitting around going when are we going to beat South Carolina, man? We've beaten Alabama and beaten Kentucky, we've beaten Tennessee around here recently. We've just never beaten, and so they're going to try, but that's one where if Carolina's defense looks iffy against Tech and Virginia Tech and SC State, you're worried because Vanderbilt is the type, Vanderbilt, like you said, returns a lot of guys on defense. If I were Clark Lee, I wouldn't have given up the defensive play calling because I thought their defense was a lot better with him calling because he's so good. So we'll see how that affects them, but they're very disciplined. You get in a situation where maybe your offense is a little sputtery in that one, and then your defense, maybe they struggle and maybe there is a significant drop off and you're down 17-3 in the first quarter because Pavia is running all over you. Throws a pass when you don't expect it. And it's hard to come back against those guys, especially if you're struggling on defense, because what they're going to do is go on 8-minute drives and punt, and you're not going to have the opportunity. So that's, we'll get into break down that game when the time comes, but that one's giving me a headache. Obviously the daggum Virginia Tech game is giving me a headache right now. The Missouri game is really giving me. So before they ever get, there's some people talking crazy out there in the national media realm about 5-0 is a preordained thing and all this good stuff. But I don't I think you got to play well. I mean, you still got to play the games. And I've seen teams through the years where everybody looks at the schedule. So that's 5-0 start right there. You know, like people are talking about Missouri, 5-0 till they get to Bama, and that's the 6th straight home game. They could lose to Kansas. They could easily lose to South Carolina. You know, they could lose to Louisiana Lafayette.
I mean, I think Missouri's defense is going to be good again, especially on the defensive line. I think they're going to be pretty good. The questions are just offensively for them. Like it starts at quarterback with Pribula, and I'd imagine he's going to win the job. But Sam Horn's also and then on that one too. But you got to replace your top 2 running backs. You got to replace Armand Membu at tackle, who was a top first round pick, I think. And then but you also got those receivers, Luther Burn and forgetting the other one's name that transferred in. But I mean, they got a lot to replace offensively, but that defense I think is going to still be pretty good. And we saw last year in that South Carolina game that those outside zone schemes run gave them kind of fit. So it's going to be a battle in that game.
Carolina hadn't stopped them the whole time Drinkwitz has been there. I mean, really, if you think about it, I guess in 2022 they made the adjustment at halftime, and I think Missouri only had 6 points in the second half. But, the thing about it is with Missouri, they don't, they lost. Didn't they lose most of their receivers? Theo Weiss is gone too. Right?
Theo Weiss, that's what I was thinking.
Weiss is gone.
Yeah, Burden's gone.
Thank goodness.
They got a couple of guys left, and they hit the portal for some players. And they got that running back from Monroe, Ahmad Hardy, that's supposed to be pretty good. The Queen of the Cock says, and I saw this too, a Vandy fan did a dynasty and went 11-1 with Vandy, and they won the SEC championship, and the one loss was to the Gamecocks. So somebody's getting a text from Amanda. Who was that? Was that you, Phil? Whose phone?
No, I keep mine on silent. Yeah.
Oh, it's Alex.
A text?
Are you broadcasting from your phone?
Mm-mm. I'm on my laptop.
I heard a ding.
Is it a
somewhere.
Mac? Is it a Mac?
It is, but I don't think I've gotten any messages.
Oh.
Somebody's
mystery
dinging.
dings.
What is that? It ain't me.
Mm-hmm.
It ain't me. It ain't me.
Hey. I don't think it's me. Hold on, because I'm on a Mac, so you do get those little.
My Mac sometimes, like my computer, if I get a text, will ding on me. So I'm not complaining.
No,
Bobby said the text from Amanda reads, "I don't love you."
I don't love you.
So
you have no soul.
Anyway, well, let me ask you this, Alex. Because we talked about the scariness of the Vanderbilt game and Missouri and all that. And I think just sitting there chatting with you, what the takeaway from that's going to be, just looking at kind of what these teams are supposed to be bringing to the table strength wise, like not physical strength, but what's the strength of their team.
JC